December 19, 1944. The folder hit Dwight Eisenhower's desk with a sound that was too soft to be violent, but too deliberate to be accidental. Inside were 3 typed pages, unsigned, unaddressed, but unmistakably clear in their intent. The Supreme Commander didn't pick them up immediately. He stared at them the way a man stares at a loaded pistol left on a table, aware that the danger wasn't in the object itself, but in what it represented. Lieutenant General George S. Patton Jr. stood 3 feet away, his polished boots catching the winter light filtering through the tall palace windows. His jaw was set, his shoulders squared, his eyes fixed not on Eisenhower but on a point somewhere beyond the room, beyond the war, perhaps. Eisenhower finally lifted the folder. He read the first line. Then the second. His expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the paper. "George," he said quietly, "do you understand what you're doing?" Patton's voice came back flat, toneless, stripped of the theatrical bravado that usually accompanied his words. "I understand perfectly." Eisenhower set the folder down. "Then you understand that this isn't just about you and Bradley. This is about the entire command structure of the Allied forces in the middle of the largest German offensive since 1940. Patton didn't move. "I understand that too." Eisenhower leaned back in his chair, his hand moving to the bridge of his nose. He pressed his fingers there, eyes closed, as if trying to physically push back the pressure building behind them. What George Patton had just done was not a request. It was not a protest. It was a line drawn in blood and ink across the heart of the Allied High Command, and if Eisenhower didn't handle it correctly, the entire Western Front could fracture from within. 48 hours earlier. 3rd Army Headquarters, Nancy, France. Patton had been sitting in his command tent when the orders came through. Not orders for his army. Orders about his army. The 101st Airborne, surrounded, cut off, bleeding out in the frozen streets of Bastogne, was holding by a thread. The German 5th Panzer Army had punched a 50-mile-wide hole through the Ardennes, and the entire American line was collapsing inward like a crushed tin can. Eisenhower had made a decision. He was transferring operational control of the northern shoulder of the Bulge, including elements of Patton's 3rd Army, to British Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery. Montgomery, the man Patton despised more than any German general. The man whose caution, whose methodical delays, whose endless preparation had driven Patton to the edge of insubordination more than once. The man who had taken credit for victories Patton believed he had made possible. The man who represented everything Patton saw as wrong with coalition warfare. Politics over speed, prestige over aggression, image over results. And now, in the middle of the largest crisis the Allies had faced since D-Day, Eisenhower was handing Montgomery control over American forces. Patton's chief of staff, Major General Hobart Gay, had watched his commander's face as the message was read aloud. Patton hadn't shouted. He hadn't thrown anything. He had simply stood up, walked to the map table, and stared at the red arrows marking the German advance. "Get me a line to Bradley," Patton said. Gay hesitated. "Sir, General Bradley is at Verdun with?" "I know where he is." "Get me the line." Omar Bradley's headquarters, Verdun. December 18, 1944. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley was not a man who lost his temper easily. He was methodical, steady, deliberate. A general who believed in chains of command, in structure, in making decisions based on logic rather than emotion. But when the call came through from Patton, Bradley's voice was tight. "George, I don't like this any more than you do." "Then do something about it." "I've already spoken to Ike. The decision is made." "Unmake it." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Bradley exhaled slowly, the sound crackling over the field phone. "Montgomery has the logistical structure in place to coordinate the northern flank. We don't. The 1st Army is scattered, Hodges is overwhelmed, and we need someone who can. Hodges is overwhelmed because he's cautious. Montgomery is cautious. You're giving a cautious man control over a collapsing front and expecting him to move fast. That's insanity, Brad. It's coalition warfare. It's politics." Bradley didn't respond immediately. Patton pressed. "You know what Montgomery's going to do. He's going to sit on his hands, wait for his supplies to come up, wait for his reserves to organize, Wait until everything is perfect. And while he's waiting, the 101st is going to die in Bastogne, and the Germans are going to push another 20 miles west. George, you and I both know the only way to stop this offensive is to hit them in the flank. Not next week. Not when Montgomery feels ready. I agree. Then tell I did. Then tell him again. Bradley's silence stretched long enough that Patton could hear the faint crackle of static on the line. Brad, Patton said quietly, if you don't fight this, I will. Don't do anything stupid, George. I'm going to do what needs to be done. The line went dead. Patton didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk, a glass of bourbon untouched beside him, and he wrote. Not a letter. Not a memo. An ultimatum. 3 pages. Single-spaced. It began with a cold recitation of facts. The German advance, the American casualties, the strategic weakness of allowing Montgomery to control American forces at a moment when speed and aggression were the only tools that mattered. It moved to a direct challenge. Eisenhower had made a political decision that would cost American lives, slow the Allied response, and hand the initiative back to the Germans at the worst possible moment. And it ended with a line that Patton knew would either force Eisenhower's hand or end his own career. If General Montgomery retains operational control over 3rd Army units, I respectfully request immediate relief from command. I will not serve under a structure that sacrifices American soldiers for the sake of coalition diplomacy. He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. Everyone would know who wrote it. The next morning, Patton flew to Versailles. Eisenhower read the ultimatum twice. Then he looked up at Patton. You're giving me a choice between you and Montgomery. No, Patton said. I'm giving you a choice between speed and caution. Between winning this battle now and winning it eventually. Between American soldiers dying because we moved fast, or dying because we waited too long. You're making this personal. It's already personal. Montgomery made it personal the moment he started treating American units like spare parts for his own plans. Eisenhower stood. He walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the frost-covered gardens of Versailles. Do you know what happens if I relieve Montgomery of command? Eisenhower asked. You win the battle faster. I lose Churchill's support. I lose the confidence of the British chiefs of staff. I lose the political coalition that's holding this alliance together. And if you keep him in command? Eisenhower turned. Then I lose you. Patton didn't blink. The silence between them was absolute. Eisenhower walked back to his desk. He picked up the folder again, flipping through the pages as if hoping the words might have changed. You're asking me to choose between military effectiveness and political survival, Eisenhower said. I'm asking you to choose between doing what's right and doing what's easy. Eisenhower set the folder down. And if I refuse? Then I resign. Eisenhower's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Try me. The Supreme Commander sat down slowly, his gaze locked on Patton's face. He was searching for something. A crack, a hesitation, a sign that this was theater, that Patton was playing his usual game of bluster and bravado. But Patton's expression was stone. Eisenhower realized, in that moment, that George Patton was not bluffing. He meant every word. Eisenhower leaned forward, elbows on the desk, fingers steepled. You think I don't know what Montgomery is? Eisenhower said quietly. You think I don't see the same things you see? Then why give him command? Because this isn't just about tactics, George. It's about keeping the alliance intact. If I strip Montgomery of authority in the middle of a crisis, Churchill will see it as a betrayal. The British press will call it an American power grab. The entire coalition could fracture. And if the coalition stays intact but we lose the battle? Then we lose the war. Patton's jaw tightened. You just made my argument for me. Eisenhower closed his eyes. He was caught. He knew it. Patton knew it. If Eisenhower kept Montgomery in command, he risked losing the battle, and losing Patton, the one general who had the speed, the aggression, and the sheer audacity to turn the tide. But if he removed Montgomery, he risked losing the political support that held the entire Allied war effort together. There was no clean answer. No perfect solution. Only choices that would cost him something. What Patton didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that Eisenhower was already under immense pressure from Washington. General George C. Marshall, the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, had sent a classified message 2 days earlier. The message was clear. The American public will not tolerate another major defeat. If the Ardennes offensive is not contained quickly, there will be calls for your removal. Eisenhower was not just managing a military crisis. He was managing his own survival. And George Patton had just walked into his office and told him that survival wasn't enough. Eisenhower opened his eyes. "If I do this," he said slowly, "if I remove Montgomery from operational control and give you full authority to strike south into the German flank, you understand what that means? It means we win. It means I'm betting everything on you." Patton's expression didn't change. "Then bet?" Eisenhower stared at him. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Finally, Eisenhower reached for his phone. "Get me Bradley." The call lasted 4 minutes. Eisenhower spoke in low, clipped tones, his words precise and deliberate. When he hung up, he looked at Patton. "Montgomery will retain command of the northern shoulder. But Third Army will have full operational independence to strike into the southern flank. You'll have priority for fuel, ammunition, and air support. Bradley will coordinate, but you'll execute." Patton's eyes narrowed. "That's half a solution. It's the only solution that doesn't destroy the alliance. And if Montgomery stalls in the north while I'm pushing in the south, then you'd better move fast enough that it doesn't matter." Patton stood. He didn't salute. He didn't shake Eisenhower's hand. He simply turned and walked toward the door. Eisenhower's voice stopped him. "George." Patton paused, his hand on the doorknob. "If you fail," Eisenhower said quietly, "I can't protect you. Not from Washington. Not from Marshall. Not from anyone." Patton looked back over his shoulder. "Then I won't fail." He left. 3 days later, on December 22, 1944, Patton's Third Army began its famous pivot north. 90,000 men. Over 130 miles. In less than 48 hours. In the middle of winter. On ice-covered roads. While under German artillery fire. It was one of the most audacious maneuvers in military history. By December 26, the 101st Airborne in Bastogne was relieved. By January 16, the German salient was collapsing. By the end of January, the Battle of the Bulge was over. Montgomery, meanwhile, had moved cautiously in the north, waiting for supplies, waiting for reinforcements, waiting for perfect conditions. The British press praised his steady hand. The American press praised Patton's lightning strike. Eisenhower, caught in the middle, said nothing publicly. But in his private diary, he wrote a single line. "Patton gambled everything. I gambled on Patton. We both won." Versailles, late January 1945. Patton returned to Eisenhower's office one final time. The folder, the ultimatum, was still on Eisenhower's desk, untouched, unfiled. Eisenhower saw Patton's eyes flick to it. "I kept it," Eisenhower said. "But because I need to remember what it feels like when someone forces me to choose between what's right and what's safe." Patton didn't respond. Eisenhower leaned back. "You put me in an impossible position, George. And you made the right choice." "Did I?" Patton's expression softened, just slightly. "You're still here." "I'm still here. The Germans are falling back." "I'd say yes." Eisenhower nodded slowly. "If you ever pull something like that again, you'll fire me." "No," Eisenhower said. "I'll resign." Patton smiled faintly. "Then I guess we both understand each other." He turned and left. Eisenhower sat alone in his office, staring at the folder. He never filed it. And he never forgot what it taught him. That sometimes the most dangerous thing a general can do is force his commander to choose between loyalty and victory. Because if the commander chooses loyalty, the war might be lost. But if he chooses victory, he might lose himself. Eisenhower had chosen victory. And George Patton had made sure he had no other choice. Years later, after the war, a historian asked Eisenhower about his relationship with Patton. "Did you ever regret giving him so much freedom?" the historian asked. Eisenhower thought for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "But I regret that he made me realize how much I was willing to sacrifice for politics instead of principle." "Do you think Patton knew that?" Eisenhower smiled faintly. George always knew. The folder, the ultimatum, remained in Eisenhower's personal files until his death. It was never made public. But everyone who saw it understood the same thing. That in December 1944, George S. Patton Jr. walked into the Supreme Commander's office and told him that if he didn't choose victory over politics, Patton would walk away. And Dwight Eisenhower, staring at that choice, realized he couldn't afford to lose Patton. Because wars aren't won by safe choices. They're won by men who refuse to accept them.